So there are two significant days in a person's life. One is the day we are born, and the other is the day we discover why. Two significant days. The day we're born, and the day we discover why. Carole King, in her play, now written from her memoir, would say very clearly, she never set out to be what she became. But circumstance and life and heartache birthed her into being the songwriter that she is today. And aren't we fortunate that she had what our friend Douglas Bonar would say, she didn't have a breakdown, she had a breakthrough. Yes? And so that's what emerges with us when we discover why we were born. Sometimes it's a shocking experience, sometimes it's thunder and lightning, and sometimes it's an epiphany, sometimes it's a love beyond what we can speak, sometimes it's deep heartache. But it bursts out of us so we can discover why that we are on this planet. The averages of the universe are based upon simple teaching of people raise their children to either be good or, this is participatory, good or, you're good little girl, good little boy, you were bad, that's bad. And that becomes like a fundamental set of terminology that's used with people. I'll do good, try to do better, do my best I can. You know, that kind of thing. That becomes kind of the space of prayer, it becomes kind of the space of consciousness. But when you really discover why you were born, those words are fine, yet they are not great enough, because you step into the amazing grace. When you step into the amazing grace, then you start using words like, how is your day? Amazing. How's everything going? It is amazing. There are miracles just all around me. I'm like writing them down, counting them, having to record them. There becomes a whole difference of spirit in the life that you're leading, in which you live and move and have your being, because you're discovering that essence of who you truly are. Correct? Does this resonate with you? Okay, so anyway, I can resonate with that idea, good, bad, that paradigm. I was metaphysical at birth. I was 5 years old, out in nature, when I said, God, you know, how did I get these parents? Some adopted, what else? Who are we? What are we doing? And I got this message that I was to bring a message to the world. The world to me then, the world, was probably Anderson, South Carolina, because I was the only metaphysical person there. Still am. And I'm not there. That being said, at 10 years old, I was walking down the road. I could still smell the road. When my cousins told me they had taken my mother away, they were giving her those barbaric shock treatments because they thought she was having an affair. Many, many weeks later, she would return. They brought her into the house. A woman that was forever changed. A person that energetically, spiritually was so different than the woman that I knew. So as the adult of 10, I move on in my life at 14, seeking friendship and connection, and my family were concerned about my sexual orientation. So they loaded me up in the car and they took me to the mental health clinic. And they were doing a homosexual assessment. It sounds like a scientific experiment. And all that occurred to me is that I'm going to be taken away. I will never be back. They're going to take me. So at that day, in that moment, I allowed myself to be taken for a very long time. Very long time. In my last major car accident in a drunken stupor where I drove a car where cars aren't supposed to go, they pulled me out of the car and the officer said, "Ma'am, who are you?" And I said, "I have no idea." But what I want you to know is that's the last time I've ever said that. I liken it to the story of the storms when the captain is on the bridge and he sees the light, and so he goes down and they send a signal and they say, "You're on our course. You need to move wherever you are by 20 degrees." And the signal comes back and says, "You need to move by 20 degrees." The captain signals back and says, "I'm a captain. You need to move your course 20 degrees. Then the signal comes back, "I'm Seaman class number 3, Andrew, and you need to move." Finally, the captain says, "You don't get it. I'm a battleship." And the signal came back, "You don't get it. I'm a lighthouse." Perhaps some of you, I spent many of my years in therapy and other places thinking about the battleship. I spent a number of years wondering why the battleship came. I spent many years questioning, why is there a battleship as I'm a child of God? I put my focus on the battleship, as so many do. The battle of the divorce they didn't plan on, the battle of the financial devastation that went accounted for, the battle of addiction. Whatever the battle is, we have the tendency to spend our energy focusing on that versus focusing on the fact that we are a lighthouse. And when we are in that deeper place of knowing that we are a lighthouse, let's say it, knowing it together, we are a lighthouse. Did you feel your auras change? Don't worry, I won't go too far out there. It's called a realization. Ernest Holmes would say it is a realization of the presence of God, and it is the most powerful healing agency known to the mind of humankind. Charles Fillmore would say this: no particular affirmation will raise you from poverty to affluence, yet all affirmations that carry ideas of abundance will lead you into the consciousness that fulfills the law. Wow. So let's add other things. No particular affirmation will raise you from addiction to being very clear that you are enough and you don't need anything to be dependent upon, yet all affirmations that carry ideas of interdependence in your life will lead you into the consciousness that fulfills the law of your being. So you are continuing to discover who you are. No particular affirmation will totally bring absolute health with one time saying it, immersed in that energy of instantaneous healing. However, as you pray that thought every day, discovering the lighthouse within your being, that presence and that power, the only end result that you can have is the absolute picture of health. Is that real? Is it true? Do we believe that? Are we really ready to stand for that in our lighthouse reality? This is what Scripture says. Join me if you like. You are the light of the world, not just the light of your itty tiny thought. You're the light of what? Of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hid, nor do men light a lamp and put it under a bushel, but on the stand, and it gives light to all that knowing, that declaration that all is well. In Unity, we offer tools rather than rules. Rules are written by a limited few, usually somehow reactively, of something that didn't go well. Tools are offered for the individuation of a person in humanity seeking to allow the understanding of God to come through in a much deeper and profound way. Which do you prefer? Tools, yes. I'm reminded of a story about BB, my brother-in-law, Brian, a medical doctor, coroner in Chalmette, has a house in New Orleans. We call it Nolans. And so pre-Katrina, he was celebrating the ability to build his medical center. He went and put down cash, $500,000 for a piece of land. Post-Katrina, they came in, new rules, changed the zone. He couldn't build anything on it. So he gives us a tour of the property. And he said, well, I have to mow it. Can't build anything on it. I guess we'll call it a park. I said, how? How? Are you okay? You know, your dream. How are you okay? Your attitude. He said, I'm grateful I had it to lose. I'm grateful I had it to lose. We saw him last year at a wedding. He never became a victim. Never. We saw him at a wedding. How's it going with the park? Oh, they changed the rules. I sold it, and I made a profit. Never losing sight of what you're discovering about who you are. And in the meantime, being thankful for all encounters along the way, kind and unkind, that have played a part in your development. Go home today and call somebody and thank them for the part they played in your life. I can assure you, if I could take out one part of my past, I would run to get it all. Yes? Because of who we are in that consciousness. Michael Beckwith, Beautiful Spirit, and doing a webinar with him on Tuesday night if you're interested. Information's on Facebook. But he talks about how he's at an airport early, which is unusual for him. And he's with Yolanda King. And as he's realizing his luggage doesn't have a name tag, he's waiting in line. And all of a sudden he looks over to the side and there's this officer looking at him and starts talking to the other officer. All of a sudden the energy in his body starts to change. Then they take out a walkie-talkie, start calling somebody in, please come to section B. And he's just, by that time, just beside himself. Literally beside himself. Because he said he totally left his body and he went to his past of who he used to be. That he thought those officers were coming to get me. And one of them came over to him and said, Dr. Beckwith, we're so sorry to disturb you. We were wanting to make sure it's you. Wanting to make sure it's you. So we could say, thank you for changing our lives. Stand in that place of lighthouse reality. For that's where the abundant living, that's where we raise in. It's like the man comes running into his house and says, honey, I got a raise. Can you believe it? I got a raise. She said, oh, that's great. How much is it? And when'd you get it? He said, well, I guess I opened the envelope, you know. So he goes over, he gets the envelope, and he says, well, it says double the amount you're making now. Your raise will become effective when you do. Your dreams, your relationships, your children who will adore you, your financial bank account that you can never outspend, your energetic being that you can never deplete, becomes effective when you do. Lighthouse, reality, a greater consciousness of big, I don't know what that is, big dreams, big, it's like it's coming through, okay? My friend called me many years ago. I was having to do some internship with prayer, and so she tells me that she's moving to Rockland, Maine, and she is going to teach students. And when I prayed for her, and I said, you betcha. You have students lined all the way down the walkway. She said, well, I don't have a piano. Well, that would help. If you're going to teach piano, you got to have a piano. So she said, well, I need a piano and I don't want to pay for it. Okay. And she said, and I want a Steinway grant. So we do our work. I'm sure others are involved. She calls me about 3 months later and she said, guess what happened? I went to a concert. My aunt bought me season tickets. They have 4 concerts a year in this little hall. And she said during the intermissions, the master of ceremonies stood up and said, ladies and gentlemen, we have a problem. We appreciate your support. We have a Steinway grant that we only need 4 times a year. Would any of you be willing to store it? We'll pay for the moving and we'll pay to have it tinned. Would you be willing? My friend stood up. She had that piano for many years. It's one of my favorite stories of all times because she didn't close down being a lighthouse. She didn't give the universe all the reasons. Her dreams became effective because she became effective. Because she was living in that place of possibility of what could happen and didn't put all her mucky muck in the idea of what couldn't happen. More often than not, we close off our greater dreams because we're too busy telling the universe to prepare ourselves emotionally of something that will not happen. Amen? Does anybody ever do that? Step on toes? Yeah? Any of you done that before? A couple of you extroverts agree. The rest of you are just elbowing each other. So I'll close with this idea. There's a man traveling the country going to different churches and checking them out. And so San Francisco, Chicago, different ones. And in the lobby of all these churches, he sees a gold telephone, and under it, it says for a call, $10,000. As he's seeing so many of them like this, he goes, what is this? Out of just curiosity. So he goes to the minister and he says, what is this? You know, what's going on? He says, well, that's how much it costs for you to call heaven. It's a direct line. Okay. So next thing you know, he makes his way to St. Petersburg, and he comes to First Unity Spiritual Campus. When he sees the phone we have in the reception area, same phone. And under it says, just give whatever you can. And so he found Reverend Temple and said, well, why is it so different here? And Reverend Temple said, well, because here it's a local call.